Karen's voice boomed across the cul-de-sac, a nasal siren that could curdle milk. "You owe me a new porch, Lucas, and I'm not asking twice." She stood on her sagging porch, a monument to her own bad taste, flanked by plastic flamingos and a chipped ceramic gnome. Lucas, a wiry man in his late 30s, clenched his fists, his jaw tight as he faced the woman who'd made his life hell for 3 years. The neighborhood had endured Karen's reign as HOA president like a bad rashichi, infuriating and impossible to ignore. Her latest demand? That Lucas, a single dad scraping by, foot the bill for her porch renovation because it lowered property values. The irony was thicker than her tacky leopard print caftan. The conflict had been brewing since Karen moved into Pinecrest Estates, a quiet suburb where the biggest drama used to be whose dog barked too loud. Karen, with her bleached hair and perpetual scowl, had weaponized the HOA rulebook, fining neighbors for unapproved mailboxes or grass half an inch too tall. She'd once slapped Lucas with a $200 fine for a basketball hoop his son, Ethan, had put up in their driveway. "It's an eyesore," she'd screeched, ignoring Ethan's crestfallen face. Lucas paid it, swallowing his pride to keep the peace. But peace was a fantasy with Karen around. Today, the air crackled with tension. Karen had called an emergency HOA meeting in her front yard, summoning Lucas and two other neighbors, Maria and Mr. Patel, to discuss her porch. Maria, a no-nonsense nurse who'd clashed with Karen over her rosebushes, stood with her arms folded, her dark eyes blazing. Mr. Patel, an elderly retiree who'd lived in Pinecrest for decades, leaned on his cane, his face a mask of weary disgust. Karen, oblivious to their hostility, waved a crumpled estimate from a contractor. "This porch is a safety hazard, and it's your responsibility to fix it," she declared, pointing a manicured nail at Lucas. "You're the only one here who hasn't paid the special assessment fee." Lucas laughed, a sharp, bitter sound that made Karen blink. "Special assessment? You mean your extortion scheme?" He stepped closer, his voice low but steady. "I checked the HOA bylaws, Karen. You can't just demand money for your pet projects. And I'm done with your fines, your threats, and your nonsense." Karen's face reddened, her jowls quivering. "You'll regret this, Lucas. I'll have your house foreclosed for noncompliance." Maria snorted, and Mr. Patel shook his head, muttering something about tyrants. The neighbors had heard Karen's threats before, but this time, something felt different. Lucas wasn't cowering. He stood taller, his eyes glinting with a secret. What Karen didn't know, what none of them knew yet, was that Lucas had spent the last 6 months quietly researching. He'd discovered the HOA was in debt, its funds mismanaged under Karen's watch. She'd blown the budget on frivolous lawsuits and her own landscaping improvements, like the hideous fountain in her yard that sprayed water into the street. Desperate to avoid bankruptcy, the HOA board had put a parcel of community land up for sale. Lucas, using every cent of his savings and a small inheritance, had bought it. The deed was signed last week. That land included the access road to Pinecrest Estates, the only way in or out of the neighborhood. Karen's tirade continued, her voice rising to a shriek. "You think you can defy me? I run this place. You'll pay, or I'll make your life hell." She jabbed a finger at Maria. "And you, with your tacky rose, didn't think I've forgotten." Maria rolled her eyes, but before she could retort, Lucas held up a hand. "Karen," he said, his voice calm but cutting, "you might want to check your mail." He nodded toward her mailbox, where a certified letter from his lawyer sat unopened. Karen froze, her bravado faltering. She waddled over, ripping open the envelope with a huff. Her eyes scanned the page, and her face drained of color. What is this?" she stammered, her voice cracking. The letter detailed Lucas's purchase of the access road and his decision, as the new owner, to revoke the HOA's easement rights. Without that easement, no one in Pinecrest could legally use the road, not for deliveries, not for visitors, not even to get to work. And Karen, as HOA president, was named in the lawsuit Lucas had filed for her financial mismanagement. "You can't do this," she screamed, crumpling the letter. "This is my neighborhood. It's not yours anymore, Lucas said. You've bullied us, fined us, and treated us like dirt for years. I bought that land fair and square. And unless the HOA meaning you pays to restore the easement, this neighborhood is cut off. Starting tomorrow. Maria gasped, then grinned. Mr. Patel let out a low chuckle. Karen's eyes darted between them, her confidence crumbling. You're bluffing, she spat, but her voice trembled. Lucas didn't flinch. He pulled out his phone, showing a copy of the deed. The neighbors crowded around, their whispers turning to murmurs of awe. The truth hit Karen like a freight train. Her reign was over. The neighbors she'd lorded over, the people she'd dismissed as beneath her, now held the upper hand. She'd pushed too far, and Lucas had outsmarted her. The porch she'd demanded he fund? It was the least of her problems now. The next day, the neighborhood buzzed with gossip. Karen's car was seen speeding out of Pinecrest at dawn, her porch still crumbling, her flamingos toppled in the grass. Word spread that she'd resigned as HOA president, citing personal reasons. The truth was uglier. Her mismanagement had left the HOA broke, and the neighbors were filing a class action suit. Lucas, meanwhile, offered to restore the easement if the HOA agreed to new leadership and a fair budget. The vote was unanimous. Months later, Pinecrest felt alive again. Maria's roses bloomed brighter, Ethan's basketball hoop was back, and Mr. Patel hosted a barbecue on the community land Lucas had donated back to the neighborhood. Karen's house went up for sale, her gaudy decorations carted away. No one missed her. The lesson wasn't lost on Pinecrest. Power, when abused, breeds its own downfall. Karen had built her throne on intimidation, but it collapsed under the weight of her arrogance. Lucas, Maria, and Mr. Patel hadn't just they'd reclaimed their home. And somewhere, in a new neighborhood, Karen was probably shouting at someone else's mailbox. But here, in Pinecrest, the air was finally quiet. The end.